Pod in My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pod in My Noggin. I can't speak today, lots of meetings. This week, we are joined by Jenn Robb, author of Warrior Mom Rising, a mom's battle plan, I love this, to advocate, overcome, and thrive. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So, you know what's interesting is I know we connected like through forums and podmatch a while back now. Mm-hmm. And then I noticed something today, and I want to tell you about what I noticed today and what my unconscious bias initially had. So I want to share that with you. Okay. So I love the story, and I love what you're doing with the story. And then I noticed on your website that there was a devotion. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't aware until today that that's a bit of a trigger for me. And I was like, oh, wait a second. What's going to happen? And I had a moment of, do I want to do this? And I'm going to explain to you why. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. But I think the world is very polarized right now, right? Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, no, you can't be that person. Then you're contributing to the problem. And this is a bias, and which is strange. The bias is strange because I will tell you that both my parents are Pentecostal ministers. My whole family, I grew up in the church, right? So for me, it was just a weird sort of experience that I had. And then it made me realize, I'm like, Jenn Robb is a person. She's doing great work. Why is this kind of coming up for me? So I wanted to share that with you because I think in life, it's important to have those discussions and say, hey, this is what happened to me. And it's kind of baseless, but it did come up, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on the matter?
Well, I mean, why was it, what was it triggering? Because you grew up in the church, or?
I think right now, just with the state of the U.S. specifically, I wasn't sure what type of person I was going to get on the other end of the podcast. And so that is not that I'm not good at conflict resolution or moving through uncomfortable situations, but it was one of those things that it just kind of like hit me, sort of caught my breath, if you will. And I had to work through it and say, it doesn't matter. So if you were to come on today and be either end of the spectrum or neutral, it wouldn't matter, because I'm here to host and talk to you about what you're doing with this book and what brought you here. But if I also want to create space for who you are, and if devotions and godliness and all of those particular things are a part of your framework, I want to make space for that. So it was just something I felt like I needed to bring up. And maybe you're like, nope, you didn't need to bring that up. But here I am. I'm just
it's totally fine. I feel like I'm probably one of the most down to earth, authentic people that you would probably ever meet. It would be probably unfair to say that faith is a very large part of who I am, and it's a large part of our story. Mm-hmm. But I also understand that is not everybody's same feeling, right? And that's okay, right? I don't want to invoke fear because I believe in God, but or even, I feel like we as humans can have conversation and dialogue without pitting one against the other.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's why
that's
I'm
what
here.
Humans do, right?
Yeah, and I love that. I love that response. And, I think going as far, because I'm one of those people, if something comes up, I sit with it and I kind of figure out where the source is from. And even a year ago, I think I wouldn't have triggered me, but now today it's something, and I'm using trigger, and I don't like that I'm using trigger. It was cause for pause. Sorry, is that's what it was. It was just a cause for pause, and but yeah, so that's out of the way, off my chest. I wanted to talk about it, and you're right. It wouldn't matter what you're human, I'm a human, and these conversations are important to have regardless, right? And if we can set aside those things that polarize us and just have those conversations, we do a lot better as humanity. So, Warrior Mom Rising, the topic at hand, right? The reason you're here. I want to know so much. But I want to go back, if we can, to when this sort of became prevalent in your life and how that began to take shape.
Well, I mean, the book was written, I started writing it in the fall of 24, but it's based on my experiences with my child dealing with mental health struggles, right? Her mental health struggle started when she was 12. And it started with anxiety, depression, ultimately leading to self-harm. And then where the pinnacle of it was where she really tried to, and she says accidentally, tried to take her life, right? And I feel like more than, it's than faith-based, but human is that it needs to be talked about because mental health is a very big struggle in today's society, right? Especially among teens and young kids. It's very, very prevalent and it's on the rise. Even suicide is on the rise. And I feel like we need to have open dialogues that are without judgment, right? Because that furthers the isolation and the disconnect from one another about mental health, right? And mental health it affects all aspects. It affects the teens, it affects young adults, it affects adults, but it affects the people who are also caring for those that are struggling with mental health as well.
Well, that's a big one, right? Because my follow-up question to that would be, prior to your daughter, had you had any real exposure to mental health issues at that degree?
No, not really to that degree. I mean, have I always been, me myself, probably a little anxious?
Yeah.
Yes. But that's probably because I'm a type A personality and I'm OCD to the nth degree, right? And so there's a level of anxiety in trying to achieve perfectionism, which is never
Yep.
going to happen,
Nope.
but never, certainly not to the degree that she went through. And it's eye-opening. It's not just eye-opening, but it's gut-wrenching for a mom to watch her kids struggle and feel so burdened that they don't want to be here anymore.
Yes. And so I know what that feels like. Been there, survived it, and part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is this, this very thing is, as a parent, people who care for people, especially children, because I feel like, 12-year-olds, they're about to reach adolescence, but they're not really able to truly articulate what it is they're experiencing or how they're experiencing or where, or even if they know
They
what
don't know what they're feeling, right? I mean,
exactly.
there's so many things that are already going on in an adolescent's body, right? There's hormones, there's brain development, and certainly their brains aren't even developed really to handle that level of burden, right? I mean, hers really stemmed from she was sexually assaulted from another student, right? And so she had carried that burden by herself. And so, and of course, we didn't find this out until really the pinnacle of when it was just April of 23 when she accidentally tried to take her life. And so and I think that that's why probably the discussion needs to be talked about a little bit more, because they don't know how to articulate, they don't know how to speak up and tell you what they're really feeling, because they don't really know themselves. But it also becomes how we as parents or caregivers relate to them, right? And if they tell us something that is difficult, or we notice the signs that something's different, right? They're isolating, they're more anxious than usual, grades are slipping, those types of things, then we can't be so reactive, right? Like if we're super reactive in those moments, then they're going to be less likely to come to us and talk to us because they don't feel safe, right? They almost feel challenged. And so the goal of writing the book and all of that was to really help moms and women, but really it's applicable to parents, right? To change kind of how they react to their children, right? And it's more about being present and making them feel safe, that they can come to you and having open dialogue even in the hardest of discussions.
Mm. I think there's so many parents out there who are not prepared for it, right? And they themselves don't have the tools or the language to be able to kind of figure out or move through that. And I love that you just gave examples of like things to watch out for, because they do regress, step away, grades drop, all of those particular things. And then I feel like also that a lot of parents may just assume that that's a part of becoming a teenager, because it is such a very strange time in a person's life, like in that age bracket. So had she disclosed to you, or you started noticing that things were different?
No, she didn't tell us how she was feeling. I mean, she just started really kind of isolating herself, right? And I jokingly always say that we were the white picket fence family, right? Like if that's what you think of, like when you think of like an all-American family, because that's how it was. I mean, she's got two older brothers that she called her boys that adore her. But she started isolating. She didn't want to be involved at like the family dinners or family game night. Her grades, she'd always been an A student, and all of a sudden she's making C's and D's, and I'm getting phone calls from the school about her performance and in classes, and I had never been called about any of my children. But the bigger thing is that she lost interest in the things that she had once loved. And for her, that had always been cheerleading. I mean, she's a competitive cheerleading, so not so much in school cheer, but she didn't want to do anything. She didn't want to pick up her cheer bag. She didn't want to go to those activities that she had always loved. And I mean, you're 100% right when you say that sometimes as parents, it's hard to notice those subtleties because they are adolescents and teens, and they are changing. But I also feel like we as parents, we know our kids, right? Like, and sometimes we have to rely on our own intuition to go, something's not quite right. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I can't pinpoint it, but something's not right. And that's just really what we had to go on until she was in a place where she was comfortable enough to be like, hey, I'm really struggling. But again, she carried the real pain of it on her own for a while before she really ever wanted to tell us what happened. But I think that brings up another point, right? Like kids, they also love us as their parents, right? And they want to protect us from the pain that they know that's gonna incur because of what happened to them, right? So it's like they want to protect us, but we're trying to protect them, and so it's like this weird cycle of games and things when you're trying to figure out what is really going on.
Well, and I think even deeper than that is just the shame that is so
Right.
inherent to SA individuals, and it's absolutely infuriating because I'm like, you were the victim here. Why do you have shame? Speak up.
Right.
The society has painted them in that corner, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to have the shame. So the fact that they wanted to protect you, but also just the shame and all of the other things that happened with that situation and continues to happen today. So she disclosed eventually when she felt safe. I'm assuming you have started to apply a different approach as well after you started noticing she was disengaging and all of that sort of thing. And then it came to that moment where she accidentally tried to take her life. What is that even like? I know what it's like from my side, being the person doing it, my parents weren't aware at the time. We talked about it much later when I was out of danger, right? What is that like for a parent?
I mean, it's gut wrenching. My two boys had found her unresponsive, right? She was laying face down in a pool of vomit with her face in a pillow. So when you look at the whole picture, and of course, my background is in medicine, so I'm like, there's so many things, right? Asphyxiation, she could have choked. I mean, all of these things, right? But, and we didn't realize what had happened until we get her to the ER and they do their lab test. And her alcohol level was 4 times the lethal limit. So she broke into a liquor cabinet that had 2 locks on it because she wanted to quiet the noise.
Mm.
And so that's why I say accidentally, because it really wasn't that she was intending. She just wanted to quiet the noise. And that's what she always has called it, is just noise in her head. And I think it's important that we recognize that that's how they feel, right? And you can't dismiss how someone else feels in those moments, right? Because I had not ever been there, right? And she just wanted a moment of peace where it wasn't heavy anymore, right? And we have to recognize that those that are suffering and struggling with mental health, they're entitled to their own feelings. And it's not our job to say, well, you're wrong or you can't feel that way. It's our job to simply love them and support them and help them through the process and figure out what's the best modality to help you heal, right?
Yeah.
And so that you can become productive as an adult. Like, I don't know that she will ever probably be 100% free of anxiety. I can hope that for her. But the reality of the situation is I don't know that that's would ever happen, right? But what we did do is we taught her much, much healthier ways to cope with those feelings, right? Um, and those are game changers. Is getting them the help that they need and finding the experts that are right for them, and allowing her, and then offering her a tool set that can carry her through her older teenage years, her adulthood. That's what's important, is setting her up with that skill set so that she can better deal with it without trying to go back and do something that could potentially end her life.
I love that you said so many incredible things right there. So like the first thing that sort of resonates with me that you said was finding the help. No, you used a different word, but goldfish brain. Finding the right practitioners, essentially, with that work with her, because
Right.
it's not a blanket catch-all when it comes to psychotherapy, psychiatry, psychologists. No, it is not. There will be, you can't build a therapeutic alliance, which is a problem for many people. Then you're never going to get through or be able to truly help that person because that person doesn't feel safe, right? So it's not a matter of just going to see somebody. It's a matter to go to see the right person. And then the other part about the tools. I didn't have the tools when I was 12. I didn't have the tools when I was 20.
Right.
I didn't have the tools when I was 30. But at 35, when I tried to intentionally take my life and failed, I learned the tools. And so if people don't take the time to teach them and talk about them, you never have them.
Right. But here's the thing, right? And this is where it comes into caregivers, right? Mom, dad, significant others, whatever it may be. You have to be empathetic and sympathetic, right? But part of showing up for them is learning to advocate for them, right? It doesn't mean that you go in with guns ablazing all the time and you're just like ready to take out everyone. That's not advocating, right? Advocating is showing up in therapy appointments or watching it's different when they're kids because you can kind of be in more. But as an adult, right, if you're struggling with it and your caregiver is like, okay, but they can see signs that you're improving or not. And part of advocating is saying, I don't know that that's the right person for you. right? And that doesn't mean that they're not a good person or they're not a good therapist or they're not a good doctor. It just means that they're not right for you, right? And as providers, I think sometimes we get into this idea that everybody fits into a box. And that's just simply not the case, right? Anxiety for you is different than anxiety for me or anxiety for my daughter. And it wasn't about like, how do I get to a quick fix? It was about how do I find the person that she is going to connect with, that she feels safe with, and that she wants to do the work. Because at the end of the day, it's the person that is struggling with the mental health that has to do the work. I can take her everywhere and I can give her the right therapist and I can vet them, but I can't do the work for her.
Yeah.
And so, we changed counselors 3 times before I found the right one for her. And the one for her was not conventional. She was not at all like if I would have picked out a picture of one, she was probably not it. But she turned out to be the best one for Chloe. And Chloe built a rapport with her and she could undergo cognitive behavior therapy and EMDR. And it was good for Chloe because now she's a thriving 17-year-old. So like it's okay to have to vet your people and to vet those that are caring for your children, right? It's okay. It's okay to change psychiatrists. I mean, we changed because, the first psychiatrist that I took her to at the recommendation of her pediatrician was one that wanted to shove, 5 pills down her throat.
Yeah.
And that's not how we operate, right? Like, I believe in modern medicine. I practice as a nurse practitioner in modern medicine, but I also have a background in functional health. And you have to be aware as a parent, as a caregiver, that when somebody says just take these 5 medicines, is that really the right decision? Right?
Where you're
Especially
fixing
when,
a symptom.
well, you're just putting a band-aid over it,
Yeah.
right? Like the goal was to get to the root cause. Now, certainly modern medicine can be helpful in like helping her anxiety where she's not so debilitated. But the goal was not to make her numb and like a zombie where she never dealt with the pain that was at the core, right? And that's the biggest difference. And it's okay to say, you're just not the right fit. You're not the right psychiatrist or the right provider for them. It's okay, right? Like it doesn't make them a bad person or whatever. They may be the right person for Joe over there, but they're not the right person for you. And I feel like people get so hung up on this thing often because I mean I've had other women say to me, well, they're the expert. They're the authority. Yes, they're experts in their field, but you are the expert on your child. And you know far better than someone who has met your child for 5 minutes what your child needs. And that's where the advocating and the voice of the caregiver has to come out.
I love this. I love this. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Partner today with CK Sims and Pod and My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Welcome back, everybody. Before the break, we have been talking to Jenn Robb, who is a fierce mom, for sure, who has done a lot of great work to help her daughter go through some very deep and troubling mental health issues and personal incident that's really heavy to carry. We spent a lot of time talking about advocacy, what that was like for you, and then so you actively were engaged in her therapy. You're a nurse practitioner. You work in medicine. I love the part that you said before the break about it's not just the medicine, and I've always believed that. And quickly, just I do talk about myself on this show, but for me, at 26 years old was the first time that I decided that I was going to go get some help with something. And the response was to medicate me.
Mm-hmm.
And when things got worse, the response was to medicate me more. And excuse me, I had been to talk therapy, excuse me, and all of that fun jazz. And but I was a zombie, as you had said. And then before 35, I was on, between my doctor and my psychiatrist, I was on 12 different medications. I was, I wasn't, I was
You weren't you.
inside. Yeah, I wasn't me at all. And
But how did you know that something wasn't right? Like, I mean, when you're on that many medications, the likelihood that one or some are all going to interact with one another,
yes,
and then you don't know which one it is, right? And that was kind of like the same thing, with the psychiatrist. I mean, he met her, and 3 minutes later, he was like, well, I'm going to prescribe these 5 pills. No, you're not.
you haven't done a tox panel. You don't know their blood work,
Right.
anything. You don't know their history.
Well, and then, so I'm like, we can put her on one to help her with the anxiety. And we did, but she started having hallucinations from the medication. It was too much.
Yeah.
And so if we had been on 5, how would I have known what was causing the hallucinations? And the other part of that is when we took her back, I called and I'm like, she's hallucinating on this. Their suggestion was to up the dose. That's counterintuitive for me, right? Like if something is making it worse, then I'm not going to up the dose. Just like if you take an antibiotic and you have a systemic reaction, and if you've got a rash from head to toe and you're vomiting, the next step is not to take more antibiotic in the same classification. So we have to be advocates either for ourselves or for those that we're caring for, right? Because there was no way that she would have known that, right? Like
No.
if she would have just gone by herself, but she was young. But it's about advocating for yourself and going, I don't want just a big Band-Aid over the symptoms. I'm not trying to mask it. There's a difference in masking symptoms of what you're feeling and trying to taking something that allows you to cope a little bit better, right? Especially if you have like debilitating anxiety or debilitating depression, right? Like where you cannot get out of bed or you can't leave your house, like was, how she felt. She didn't want to leave the house. There's a difference in taking something that says, okay, I'm going to adjust the chemical levels in your brain and we're going to get up today. But I'm still going to go to therapy and learn different techniques and skill sets and modalities that can help me, be deep breathing, journaling, painting, walking outside, whatever it may be, in addition to the medicines, because I want to use the medicines as a tool and not as a crutch.
Love this. It's very rare that I get to sort of meet someone who's in the medical field who shares the same thought process on medication, right? And I think the reason I was pseudo self advocating, but I think at that point in my life I was so desperate to stop feeling the noise, which I love that actually. Just turn off the noise. That I was like, okay, well, we'll try it, that sort of thing. But it wasn't the answer. And I love what you said as well, where you're using it as a tool, not a crutch. And when I made my attempt and failed, I nuked all meds for 6 months. That lasted, I think, 10 days when I realized, okay, wait a second, I need one of these. Back to my doctor, I'm like, which one is it that I need? And through the symptoms, we were able to figure out I was going through benzo withdrawal. Mm-hmm. So that had to be reintroduced below therapeutic level just to give me that little boost. And now, almost 10 years later, I'm below therapeutic level on both medications. I'm only on 2. And I'm perfect. Like, no, I'm not perfect at all, but you know what I mean? Like, things are good. And they're just the tool, not a crutch. So you went through all of this, which is massive, by the way, and then you did all of this advocation. What made you take the shift? What made you realize that you wanted to now funnel this into a book to help people, but like because you're doing more than just the book. Like you have your website is full of freebies and like resources. I think you're coaching as well. I want to talk about your 30-day devotional, FYI. I do, because I know that your story is so. You said at the beginning that it's intrinsically
But
faith.
here's the thing: is like I think for me, like it wasn't that I had ever set out to be an author. Like that was never on my radar, right? Like I didn't even like to read books when I was growing up, right? Like that's just not who I am. But what I realized is through it, some of it was my own doing, right? And the fact when I say that is I mean that I isolated myself, right? I didn't want to talk about how I was feeling or what we were dealing with as a family
Mhm.
because I didn't want the judgment and I didn't want to hear, well, why didn't you see it? How did you miss it? How do because that's not what you need at the moment, right? I mean, I was dealing with my own mom guilt and mom shame of feeling like I let my child down. But what I learned through this process is that sometimes it's not best to isolate yourself. Sometimes you need community of someone who can cheer you on, right?
Yes.
And somebody who has walked through not necessarily the exact same picture because all of our stories are different, but can understand how you're feeling and empathize and sympathize and say it's going to be okay, and they can almost become like cheerleaders for you, right? And that's what I realized is like I don't want other people to feel alone. Dealing with and caring for someone who is already struggling is already isolating enough. And I truly believe that there's power in community, right? In you feel empowered, you feel stronger, you feel like, okay, I'm not in this battle alone. And
Well, yeah.
that's the biggest thing, right? Is that you're not alone. And when you have someone who can champion in your corner, and I get that not everybody has that, right? Not everybody has trusted friends or trusted family or whoever. And that's like really why behind the coaching is because I don't want people to feel alone or isolated because that just adds to the feelings of everything else that you're already feeling and you're carrying.
Were you alone and isolated, like outside of your family?
We
Did
just
you
didn't
have
talk about it.
anybody?
We just didn't talk about it. I
And
mean, my husband and I, and then we kept it within my husband and I, and our three kids. I mean, I talked to my mom, but my mom had never walked that journey
mm,
because she had never dealt with anything like that. And so it's important to have somebody who understands, right? Who has been on a journey that's a struggle and that's as heavy as something like that, right? Because then you do understand. You may not have the same story, but you still empathize differently than someone who's never walked that journey.
there's a relatability,
Right, 100%.
right? Like you and me, we're countries apart. I'm in Canada, you're in the US, but our stories are very different, but there's a relatability. I
Hmm.
can understand what you went through, what your daughter was going through.
Hmm.
I can also understand how isolating just mental health can be at times in specific groups, right? Because I grew up with that, and it's better now. I've seen big shifts in that conversation. In I'm just going to say it in the church.
In church, right.
Yeah, in the church, because there was such a stigma attached to it. Even more,
But
I found in the
we're in the
church.
church and we didn't talk about it because of that, because of the stigma. So it's not just those who are in the church that feel it, it's those that are in the church. I mean, we just didn't talk about it with anybody because of that reason. I didn't want the judgment. And I believe in the power of prayer.
Yes.
Okay. But I don't think, and what people don't need to hear from the church is just pray it out of them because that is isolating. It makes you feel like you're not good enough on a Christian level, right? And nobody needs to feel that way because prayer works, but you can't just pray mental health out of somebody, right? There's some sort of rooted trauma or rooted incident or chemical brain imbalance for whatever reasons. And you have to treat that and get to the cause and the root cause and not just pray it out of them.
Yeah, and listen, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I love what you're saying because I think, and I relate so much to what you're saying right now. What these are some of my frustrations, right? I grew up in the church. I am a gay Christian. I love
Mhm.
Jesus. I pray all the time. Um, all of those things. Oxymoron, that's my business, no one else's, right?
Mhm.
That is the thing. Prayer is such a strong foundation to have in your daily life. And if your children are taught to pray and they incorporate, that's wonderful. But at the end of the day, if somebody got shot, would the church or would anybody say just pray it out of them? No, they
No.
would take them to get medical attention and come up with a treatment plan, physiotherapy, rehabilitation, all of those things. It's the same for someone who has mental illness. And I think that's where we need to talk more and get to is that prayer, yes, in conjunction with actual
Therapy.
help and
Mhm.
therapy, right? It's
100%.
it's incredible. I love this. I really love this. I actually have some goosies at the moment. Um, so you have the book. It's out for purchase. You are doing coachings. People can. So you have the website warriormomcoach.net.
Mhm.
Okay, so this will be linked on this podcast as well. So if somebody is going through it right now, um, they can they can get in touch with you and set up a call. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So, like on the website, I mean, it says like contact me. So, like that comes directly to my email. Um, we also have a group on Facebook, Warrior Moms Rising, that's really there. And again, it's just a group of women who offer prayer, who offer support, who offer to be your cheerleader, right? When you're really struggling. And now all of our stories are different, right? Some have had kids that have struggled with addiction. Some have had spouses that have struggled with addiction or mental health. Some just are in a really low place because they have wayward children. And that's okay. Like all of our stories are different. But again, it's that relatability, right? And how we can cheer each other on to keep going and to keep rising and keep putting one foot in front of the other, because at the end of the day, that's where the biggest difference is made. And what I don't want for people is for people to stay stuck in this place of sadness and darkness when there is hope, right? And there are people that want to lock arms with you and stand in the battle and help fight for you and fight with you. That's the biggest thing, right? Is again that they're not alone.
Yeah, you just said a word, well, two words actually. That it's it's the darkness, right? But the darkness is synonymous with the hopelessness.
Mhm.
And when you get stuck in there, it's really hard to get out. And so having a group that you can go to, like say on Facebook, or someone like yourself you can reach out and have a conversation with, so important. Lifelines. And they're not always everywhere, but they are always everywhere if you look.
Look.
And I
Mhm.
would often say, and it's interesting because I know that this conversation took a turn from the beginning, but I would often say is just pray.
Prayer is powerful, right? I mean, it gives us the ability to have a conversation and a dialogue, but that is a very individual
It is, yes.
journey,
Yeah.
right? And, I mean, when my daughter was struggling, would we pray for her? Yes. Would we pray over her? Yes. But we never said, just pray about it and move along, right?
Oh, yeah, no.
You can't use prayer and just dismiss the reality of the situation. And I think prayer brings you to a place where you can be honest and you can be open, right? And nobody else has to hear it. And that's okay. That's what it's there for, right? but it's another open dialogue that you can have that brings you a sense of peace, especially when you can couple that with tools and
Yeah.
coping mechanisms and skill sets that set you up better for the continued journey. And there's no perfect answer for any of this, right? There's just not. There's no quick fix. And unfortunately, we live in a very much of an Amazon society where we want to pray about it and it's going to be fixed overnight. But that's just not how it works.
Like I said to my mom,
Sometimes we
there's no magical fix-it shop in the sky.
I wish it was. I mean, I
I
do. I
just
wish it
do.
was. But it's not. And we have to get out of that Amazon mentality that we live in. And it's important for people not only struggling with mental health, but also those that are caring for them to understand that this is not a quick fix, right? You're not going to snap your fingers and you're going to wake up tomorrow and, oh, they're all better. This is months, years of journeys that, and I think that that's where even prayer becomes a little more powerful, right? Is because you have to lean on something that's bigger than you
Yep.
to carry you all the way through, right? Because the journey is not for the weak. It is not for the faint of heart.
It's like a buckle up. We're going for a ride.
Yeah.
Bring snacks because we're going to need it, right?
Yes.
Because, and
You
that's
got
the
some
part I
real
wanted to.
highs and some lows in there.
That's what I wanted to say as well. Is like, when you're on this journey, especially as a caregiver, like you're going to get that ebb and flow where the person is going to seem like they're healed and feeling great and better, but this could happen many, many, many times. It could happen perpetually,
Mm-hmm.
that they're up and then they're down. And so you have to understand that it's not necessarily a setback, but there's a part of the journey and a part of the situation that you're
But
in.
the journey, if you allow it, is what is who you become, right? Like
Mm,
I used to tell Chloe, and I still tell her this: we can't always look at our circumstances like, why is it happening to me? Sometimes we have to look at it and say, why is it happening for me? What lessons am I trying to learn? And what can I learn from this? What can I take from this that will make me a better human? What will take from this that can make me have more impact on another human life? Right. And so I never let Chloe stay stuck in this victim mentality of like, woe is me. Okay. Because at the end of the day, life is going to life. It's always going to life. No matter how old we are, no matter how old we get, there's always going to be something. And it comes down to perspective, right? Would I wish this on anybody? No. But if you change it a little bit and you look at it, okay, what am I learning? Because what she's learned is she's learned confidence and she's learned that she's beautiful and that she has self-worth and that she has a voice. So had she not walked through this season, would she be the confident, thriving 17-year-old she is today? We
we
don't
don't
know.
know. And would it happen later or whatnot? But one of the things that I noticed a lot with people who go through it, right, is that when they come out, they're a lot kinder
Mm-hmm.
to others. And I think it's because those who have suffered start to understand human suffering, and they know that everybody has their story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, one of the things that I noticed change in myself was when I see someone do something that I perceive as, say, not good or whatever the situation may be. Previously in life, I might have resorted to judging or saying something not so nice, not to them specifically, but just saying it, whatever. Now I'm actually curious about what choices or life events happened that brought them to where they are today. How did they get here? Because we're all just a group of stories and life events and choices and events that bring us to where we are. So, warriormomcoach.net is the place to go to get the book. I just got to scroll back up now. No, I scroll down. Warrior Mom Rising, a mom's battle plan to advocate, overcome, and thrive. So you are, for people at home, you are thriving now, and you're doing the work, and you're having the conversations, and we need this. Like, and
We
when I
need
say
open
we,
dialogue.
yeah,
We need to be honest with others and with ourselves about what's really happening, right? Especially when it comes to the youth. I mean, there's a whole different way we could dive into that, right? Because I think that there's social media and all of these things that play into that. But what parents need to understand is that it's okay to ask the hard questions. Just be careful and mindful of how you react to the answers that you get sometimes. And realize that sometimes it's not directed at you. It's not personal. It's where they are. Just like when we've had a really hard day and we're burnt out and we're exhausted, who do we snap at? Who do we take out our frustrations on, right? Typically the ones that we're surrounded by that we love the most.
yeah.
Spouses, children, significant, whatever, right? Like that's who you typically are going to be like short-tempered with. And so it's the same thing when you're caregiving and you're caring for someone who is struggling. Sometimes they take that out and direct it at you because they feel safe that you're not going to walk away. And that's the thing, right? Like we can't carry someone else's burden, but we can show up, and we can show up in love, and we can show up in strength, and we can show up to comfort them and tell them, hey, I'm here every day. Every day. I'm going to be standing right here. And you can hug them and you can give them the support that they need. And sometimes that support is not always words. It's just by being present.
It's being that soft place to land, right? And there is a
Mhm.
lovely photo of two women who, in my opinion, look pretty much identical, um, wearing these lovely paisley blue dresses, holding the books. And I would imagine that the one to the left is Chloe, right?
Yep.
Because I know I'm talking to you. Um, so if you're interested in seeing the thriving 17-year-old that Jenn Robb help support get through some massive mental health issues, you can head over to warriormomcoach.net. Your book is available on your website, I
Amazon.
believe, but is it on Amazon and major
Yeah.
bookstores?
So it's on they can actually download it like on the website, but they also Amazon, if you're on Kindle, they do free Kindle. But you can do the paperback on Amazon, and then it's just got released on barnesandnoble.com as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And inside the book, it's the story, but it offers advice and resources as well, right? It's
Yep.
a
Resources,
perfect.
stories, applicable tips. Yep.
And the Facebook group, I'm not on Facebook. Like I am, but I'm not. So it
Mm-hmm.
is, yes, Warrior Moms Rising is the Facebook
Mm-hmm.
group.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're even more interested, you can go over and ask to join the group
Mm-hmm.
and get surrounded by a lot of lovely women who are walking in familiar paths that are there to cheerlead. So that was a recurring theme, right? Cheerleading
Mm-hmm.
coming up, and what you're doing. You cheerleaded for your daughter, and now you're cheerleading for others. What's next for you? I mean, you want your kids to continue to grow and thrive and be healthy and all of those things. You've written a book. You're out there supporting people. Is there something big on the horizon for you, or just going to keep doing the good work?
I mean, I'm going to keep on keeping on. I mean, the goal is to ultimately do speaking and really do women's conferences where we help build them up, but really almost from a functional health perspective, right? Because health and wellness is very important to me, right? And
Yes.
taking care of yourself and taking care of your body so that you can show up for those that need you most. And so that's the goal, right? Is to build it more and add in more of the functional health space that I feel like so many people need in today's world.
I think you would make a great public speaker. I don't know if you get nervous in front of like large audiences. I get
Yes.
terrified.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, because I would just be sweating bullets. That's how
Yes.
I get nervous. But I feel like you would be a great public speaker, and you would be able to share that story and connect with a lot of people who were in the audience. So I hope that happens for you. But I also pray that the Lord will give you the courage and the strength to get up there and stand resolute in your message, right? And I wanted to quickly circle back. I said prayer, pray when I was talking about when you're in it and you're looking for a lifeline, that sort of thing. It's important for me to also note that I use prayer as synonymously with like wish, manifest. Like I really kind of group it all together because you are speaking to a higher power, and I do believe the higher power is God. So so if you're at home and you say manifest or wish or any of those things, I think it's all one and the same. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
Looking forward to seeing you on a stage somewhere in the near future. And for everybody at home, I hope that you enjoyed today's show. Head over to warriormomcoach.net, get a copy of the book, sign up to the Facebook, and until next time, get out there and live your wildest dreams.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@cksimms.com or visit cksimms.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.